Welcome back. I'm MTG Joe, and we're going to be continuing with our series of Ravnica only card decks. So this was something I had started as kind of a challenge to myself. We had posted our first few decks on the MTG Arena subreddit, and that got a lot of good positive feedback. So we're continuing on and building out a couple more decks. So the general rules that I've kind of imposed on myself is to use cards from the last two sets, Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. Newer players on MTG Arena are pretty much just opening up these packs and don't have a lot of the cards from Ixalan Block, Dominaria, or M19. So as much as possible, we are only including those cards. There is an exception where we are including lands from older sets. So in this case here, we're adding in the Woodland Cemeteries. Because I don't have a lot of the duals in green-black, it's just haven't been the colors I've been playing. We haven't been using too many duals, so we're actually using Guildgates here. In any case, if you don't have the Woodland Cemeteries, you can always play the Guildgates. They can be a little bit slower at times, but if you don't have them, then you don't need them right now. But it is something that I would generally consider crafting first if it's a color scheme that you want. In this case here, we're also playing Memorial Folly. This is a really good utility graveyard land from Dominaria. So it enters the battlefield tap and will add a black mana, but for 3 mana you can sacrifice the land to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So for this deck here, we're playing the Golgari tribe. So this is green-black. And this deck here is focused around self-milling creatures into your graveyard, bringing them back, and playing it with the Undergrowth mechanic. So in this deck as well, we are using one card from M19 just because it's so good for this type of build that we're even seeing play with it in Dredge decks in Modern. So Dredge is a mechanic where you put creatures into your graveyard. So this little 1/1 for 1 Stitcher Supplier, when it enters the battlefield or it dies, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. So this is great for self-milling. We're also playing 3 Gutterbones. This is a creature that we can get back from our graveyard for 2 mana whenever we deal damage to an opponent. We're also playing 4 Kraul Harpooners. So this is a 3/2 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, it gets plus XO until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and then you can have it fight a creature with flying. This is really good against any of the Drake decks, Niv-Mizzet, Lyra, anything like that. And the fact that it goes back to our graveyard and we're playing a lot of creatures just kind of fills it in. Glowspore Shaman is similar to Stitcher Supplier. When it enters the battlefield, you're milling 3, but this one gives us the option to put a land back on top of our graveyard. So what we can do is we can play Glowspore Shaman and start recycling our Memorial of Follies, which is a good combination there. We have Midnight Reaper to draw cards when creatures die, Plaguecrafter, which will sack itself for other creatures. So you can play like a Stitcher Supplier, then play Plaguecrafter. Your opponent has to sacrifice creature or planeswalker. We can sacrifice the Stitcher Supplier and get back 3 more cards into our graveyard. We're also playing Golgari Raider, which is a 4 mana haste. So it can attack the turn it comes down, and it gets a 1/1 counter for each creature in your graveyard. So if you fill the graveyard with 10, 12, 14 creatures, this could at times one-shot your opponent. We're playing 2 Golgari Findbrokers, which when it enters the battlefield, we could get a permanent from our graveyard back to our hand. So again, just recycling our threats. 2 Find Finalities, just to get creatures back from our graveyard to our hand, or if we need to wipe the board. We're playing 1 Izoni, the Thousand Eye. So when it enters the battlefield, it creates an insect for each creature we have in the graveyard, and then you could sacrifice a creature to gain a life and draw a card. We're also playing a Lotleth Giant, which when it enters the battlefield, it could deal damage to target opponent for each creature in our graveyard. So these are kind of our top-end finishers. And then we also have Molderhulk. So this looks like a 9 mana spell, but in reality, a lot of the times when you cast this, it'll be for 2 mana. It reduces its cost for each creature in your graveyard. And then when it enters the battlefield, you get to bring a land back. So what you can actually start doing is, if this is in your graveyard, you could sacrifice Memorial to Folly to bring it back to your hand. You can cast it for 2 mana and then get the Folly back. And then just keep recycling the same combination. So we're going to be playing this in best of 1 like we did with all the other decks. If you're interested in a sideboard for these particular decks, just let me know on the subreddit after when we post it. and we can go from there. We'll also include some options to build out further. There's options for stuff like Vraska, the 4 mana Vraska, this one here. I'm trying to keep the amount of rares and mythics down, so this will allow you to sacrifice to draw more cards. It's just really about improving the numbers on stuff like this, but we'll give it a shot. I've had some fun in the past with something like this. So we'll just play, and green-black Undergrowth. I know there's a lot of popularity with the Teysa Orzhov Divine Visitation deck, just playing around the Afterlife mechanic, so that's something as well. We'll be coming up with a Mardu Aristocrat, so like the upgraded version. We'll come up with a video with that in future days as well. So this hand's pretty good. We don't have a mill on one, but we can take care of whatever creature they have, get this down, and then always bring it back, and then have Golgari Raiders. So as we wait for our opponent, if you haven't done so already, if you're looking for a way to support the channel that costs you absolutely nothing, if you just hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner over here, that goes a long way to support the channel and just help me build things up. Costs you nothing, and it's a great way to help. So here, opponent looks like will likely be on some sort of control build. This deck's quite resilient against control, just because of the amount of recursive threats we have. Stitcher Supplier is good here, so we'll just attack in. And then that's something we could sack next turn to Plaguecrafter. So here we hit 2 Midnight Reapers and a Stitcher Supplier. Midnight Reaper was probably something we wanted to keep, just to give us card draw. Still uncertain if our opponent's on a banned variant with green. This might just be blue-white control. So we'll attack in here. We're going to hold off on this. It's only 3 power right now. That's especially good after something like a board wipe. So here we're just going to sack the play this Plaguecrafter. They'll have to discard a card. And depending what we hit, we might get lethal next turn. So we just hit lands. So actually not the worst. So they play Shalai. So Harpooner here can fight and kill, which is really good. So this is a reason why we're playing this. It's removal without having to play non-creature removal. So another card that you can look in terms of upgrading that's not that hard to get is Ravenous Chupacabra, the 4 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you can destroy target creature. That'd be something that's quite useful as it is targeted. Plaguecrafter is good when you're playing against like a control or 1 or 2 big creatures, but if opponent's playing with a lot of like smaller creatures, they end up just sacking like an Elvish Mystic or something like that. So they play Hydroid Krasis. So here I'm going to play Golgari Raiders, and we're going to attack with everything. So they'll do the trade there. This looks like some sort of banned variant. So opponent needs to do something next turn. So they have Shalai. Plaguecrafter's perfect, and we win. So this is taking down some pretty major creatures. We took down Krasis, Shalai, Lyra, and took down the opponent quite easily with that. So this deck seems pretty promising so far. Ooh, growing Rites of Itlamog. Let's see what we got in our pack. Hoping for more Shocklands or just rare wild cards. This is usually the bottleneck with so many good lands coming in at the rare slot. You end up spending it all on that. So we'll take it for a couple more spins. So we've done Mardu, we've done we've done Rakdos, Izzet, Boros, and now we're doing, and Orzhov, so this will be Golgari. So let me know what you'd like to see next. This hand doesn't do enough. This hand also doesn't do enough. So punished for the lands, this one's not bad. Just put Find Finality at the bottom. So of note, opponents shock themselves, so they likely have an opt in hand. Even as a 2 mana, 3 power against control is quite useful. So here, I think we just want the swamp on top. We want to hit Midnight Reaper. So opponent opts here. So opponent looks to be on Jeskai. So they Lava Coil here. Not the end of the world. They're wasting Lava Coils on stuff like this. We have a lot more valuable recursive threats, or at least have die triggers. So we want to get the Midnight Reaper out. If they do have more removal and they want to kill it, they can. But we get card draw that way. There is... I think we just wait. There's no value of us playing this, it just dies, so it's 3 mana for us to make the opponent discard. It does draw us a card, so that's a consideration for next turn. We could sack the Glowspore Shaman. Of note, we didn't hit any creatures in our graveyard. Opponent absorbs here. So even with spells getting countered and going into our graveyard, it does help us in the long run. We're actively trying to get things in our graveyard. So opponent might have either Settle or Chemist's Insight here. So there is a play here where let's force him to discard or tap out now. If needed, we could always buy it back with Memorial of Folly. So we'll sacrifice it, lose a life, draw a card. So they drop a Niv, which either indicates they have a second Niv or they're short on lands. So we'll wait till play the land. Attack for 3 here. And pass turn. Opponent likely ops here. Wonder what's in their hand. There has to be a second Niv, because this card's too good to not at least try to run out. So they keep it on top. So we need 7 mana to get Memorial back and play Plaguecrafter. So they play Teferi here. Be interested to see if they tuck. Nope, they draw a card. Okay, so we draw a land here. Play the Midnight Reaper. So we're doing this main phase in case they do have like a Justice Strike or a 2 mana spell. We'd get 2 draws. So even if they board wipe now, it's actually not bad. We'd get 4 draws. And as a general rule, if you're a newer player, you take unless you can kill your opponent within a turn or 2, you pretty much always answer the Teferi. It gives them so much card advantage that you can't let it stick on the board. We also don't know if this variant will be playing Settle the Wreckage, so we need to be mindful when we attack in. So for example, next turn we'd probably just attack with 1. If they want to do a 1-for-1 with Settle, it's not as bad. opponent's thinking. The nice thing with this deck is you don't really feel bad if your creatures die. Okay, so opponent's pretty desperate if they're doing that. So here, it's still only 3 creatures. So they play Binding on Midnight Reaper. So it's actually not bad drawing this here. So you can see the benefit of this card being a haste. We can attack in. And take the fairy off the board. Blowing the Banefire there indicates that they were low, like they didn't have a sweeper. And then them having a Binding. Them taking out 2 of them already, we only have 1 more, so it's not really a dead draw. Also, the reason we went with Gutterbones here versus the Harpooner is they've already shown Niv, and it's not unusual for these decks to also have Crackling Drake or Lyra. See what the opponent does. If they do settle us here, then I will play them both out just to keep up the pressure. Because we still have this as a good follow-up afterwards. The negative of settle is we don't get the creatures in our graveyard. So they sabotage here. Not the end of the world. We'll end the turn. So depending how they end this turn, if they don't really advance the board state. Okay, so they play Treasure Map. I'm gonna get back. Alright, we actually can't play the Midnight Reaper, so it's fine. Here we need to decide. You get the Plaguecrafter, get the last card out of their hand. I think we do. Plays around Settle. That does take us off Izoni, but we have enough pressure on the board. And naturally we draw into the Plaguecrafter anyways. So we're doing this main phase. Forces them to either show what they have in terms of a counter spell or discard the card. Okay, so they're trying to play around something. At the very least, we can get in 5 more points of damage. Surprised they didn't scry first, just to smooth out. Sacrifice Plaguecrafter. They scry now. It's also important against control that if you're applying decent pressure and it doesn't change the clock dramatically, not to overextend. You put the onus on them to have the answer, and then that also turns off their counter spells. So if they have something like Absorb in hand, we're not allowing them to gain the 3 life. So here they had the sweeper, but we can follow it up. So if we draw a land, we'll go Izoni. Okay, so we have Golgari Findbroker here. Of note, this doesn't allow us to play... Actually, we'll get back the Raiders. So play Findbroker here. See if they have a counter spell. They do. So we'll just pass the turn. Kraul can kill a Niv Mizzet or a Lyra here, which is good. So opponent flips the treasure map. They have a lot of mana now, but they still need answers. Another card out of the sideboard if you're looking for upgrades, Thrashing Brontodon is a good card. It will allow you to blow up enchantments or artifacts. There's a lot of them going around right now. So they have the absorb here. So we let on that because now Harpooner should be able to resolve. If you just lead with this, it gets countered, then you play the Plaguecrafter, you have to sack it. Like this, we have a threat. This card would probably be good with Rhythm of the Wild too. We had 11 power when it entered. So if we could connect in, then we can buy back Gutterbones, and then play it, and then we'd have lethal on them, or present lethal. I want to try to hold off until we have 8 mana, so they have Niv here, so they're rewarded for waiting a turn. They're out of cards, which is something to note, but they can draw with the treasures, so they could ping at least once. See if they hit the Harpooner or if they go to face. Niv being out pretty much invalidates Gutterbones, unfortunately. Another Harpooner off the top would be good. Actually, we don't. But we do have Molderhulk, which is a very large creature. So if we attack, they block. 1, 2, 3. So we can play it. So let's attack first. So they don't block there, which is good. So here we'll Gutterbones. Cast Gutterbones, see if this draws out a counter spell. And cast Molderhulk. So this is where you're getting a 6 mana, or 6/6 for 2 mana. And it gets us our Folly back. So Niv will likely take down the Gutterbones here. It is potential. It's disadvantage. Oh, they're going after Molderhulk, so they're going to try to draw some cards here. They play Clarion, so it'll wipe our board. And it'll give Niv lifelink. It's not the end of the world, because we can just get this back next turn and then kill Niv. They play Karn.
I will defend my allies. Well chosen.
So we do not want them to have the seal away this turn at least. So the opponent has the option to gain 5 here. They haven't shown. Well, they can always draw to kill the Molderhulk as well. Which they do. So that'll put him back up to 11. So here, how many creatures? 10. So we're 1 short of just one-shotting them. We'll play it safe this turn. We need to get Niv off the battlefield. Play Harpooner. Do they have the counter spell? And this is why I was saying, like, okay, so they have the Syncopate, which is actually probably the worst for us. We could have bought it back one more time next turn. Memorials are really good in this style of deck. So if this is like your play style, you should craft these. I know they're from an older set, but you've seen the value of just bringing back creatures this has done for us. So opponent's pretty much got lethal. We'll give them the insight. They'll insight here. Yeah, they're going to have us. So we'll concede this one. We'll grind out one more. So we came close against control. A couple of well-timed spells. And Niv Mizzet, which is a very, very good magic card. I know a lot of people kind of slept on it for the first couple of weeks. It was pretty cheap even to purchase, but it is one of the main reasons to still go Jeskai over something like Esper in terms of closing out the game speed. So here, it's a little bit slow. I think we still try it out. So here we'll lead on Gutterbones. Opponent leads on Forest. Actually, second Gutterbones here isn't that bad. And then we can just play Memorial here. So we have some good pressure. Even if they have a creature, we can attack with both and then bring it back. Oh, so we're actually playing the Mirror, which is funny enough. So this is another very good card for this type of archetype. It basically allows you to keep bringing back creatures, so Journey to Eternity definitely is something you want to keep on your radar. So we'll attack with both. If the opponent wants to block, we could have just brought it back anyways and trade. Somewhat surprised the opponent didn't opt for that, so Stitcher Supplier, so they'll likely trade now with that. So the Izoni, even stuff like Llanowar Elves just to get you a little bit further ahead. So that'll transform next turn. So they could bring back Izoni then, which is quite scary. But I think we need to be aggressive regardless. We have our own Izoni, but their graveyard's a lot fuller. It may be right as well to play some number of cards such as Field of Ruin, just to blow up these lands. So they're at 7 creatures in the graveyard. So here, take another land on top. So if they have a land, they can bring back Izoni. So if you want to see how the deck plays in its current state and how it can play upgraded, it's probably the best matchup to see that. We'll trade here. It does get one more insight. Okay, so they have Molderhulk. If we draw land, we can play our own Molderhulk, but it'll be tapped. Undergrown Lich. So they're a little bit more all in on this theme. Play out the Golgari Raiders. We can offer the trade here, or they'll pay for life. Pass turn. This is the importance of having the early turns where you have the Glowspore Shaman or the Stitcher Supplier. Yeah, Journey to Eternity is definitely the card you want to add. Even in that Jeskai game, if we had this to just keep bringing back creatures. And this also gets around Ixalan's binding because you're not casting the card, you're returning it from the graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, so we lost this game. So this is a good demo of what you can, like I said, make this deck. So I'll include some of these upgrade options as well in the write-up. But hope you enjoy. If you do, make sure to subscribe. That way you can get notifications if you choose when we go live with any of the new easy-to-build decks or any of our constructed content. It's a free way for you to support the channel, and it goes a long way to helping me to continue to build out content. Thanks for watching, and have a great one.